Support for this podcast has been provided by Alliance Bernstein Investment Management and Research, making money meaningful.
In 2014, we can fly to the moon and to the space, but we cannot know what happened in the womb, and we need to move women around the world. I said data should travel, women should not, and we can do so much better to women.
This is Startup Stories from the Startup Nation. My name is Yigal Marcus. Thank you for joining us. In this podcast, we'll meet the entrepreneurs who have personified the economic miracle known as the Startup Nation, the State of Israel. We'll learn about the culture which helped incubate them and their ideas. We'll learn of their successes and, of course, their failures. And we'll explore why it is that Israel develops some of the leading innovators of our time. Childbirth can be one of the greatest and most exhilarating moments in all of life. When the doctor finally tells you that your newborn is healthy, the relief is indescribable. After all, for months, many parents are stressed by the lack of certainty as to whether their baby is going to be okay and whether the birth will go smoothly. The stress of pregnancy is real, and for good reason. According to the World Health Organization, 1,600 women and more than 10,000 newborns die each day worldwide from preventable complications during pregnancy or birth. What to do? Well, many expectant mothers call their doctors frequently when they have a concern, like if the baby isn't moving around or something just doesn't feel right. And often, physicians will encourage them to go into the office to be checked. But surprisingly, according to a 2016 study by the National Institutes of Health, there is no correlation between the number of doctor visits during pregnancy and better neonatal outcomes, which means that many of the physician visits don't really do too much, except maybe alleviate the stress of the mother temporarily, at least until the next scare. A startup in Israel called Nuvo, founded by Oren Oz, is trying to solve that problem by empowering women to be assessed by their physician in the comfort of their home at any time of day via a wearable device that Nuvo invented called InView. Now, Nuvo's product InView is not yet in the market, but if approved by the regulatory agencies, they have the potential to vastly improve the experience of pregnancy for millions of women and hopefully save a lot of lives in the meantime. We're here today with Oren Oz, the founder of Nuvo, which is a very hot startup that has really taken off. And we're going to get into Nuvo in just a few minutes and how they are completely disrupting women's health, primarily with pregnancies, but really the entire ecosystem of pregnancies before, after. And we'll get to that in a second. First of all, Oren, thank you very much for being here with us. We really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Oh, thank you for hosting me here.
My pleasure. So, Oren, first of all, where'd you grow up?
Born in Israel, grew up in Jerusalem. Most of my life till I found out that Tel Aviv existed, and then I moved, like most of people. Grew up in Jerusalem, high school in Boyer, known school in Jerusalem, and army, traveled the world like everyone else. University, Ben Gurion.
So you grew up in Jerusalem. You served 5 years in the Israeli Air Force.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
My entire journey at the Army was started in the pilot course. I was there almost a year and a half. Long story by its own merit. Moved from there for the Air Force Intelligence. Amazing journey. Met my wife as well. So
in the Army?
In the Army. Not in the Air Force, but on the bus to the base.
Yeah, that's a story you want to hear.
That's a different story for its own, because everything is connected. So it started there, and without her, we were not here. That's for sure. Almost 5 years at the Army. At the end of it, as most of it the intelligent forces and multiple jobs.
When you finished the Army, you then went to Ben Gurion University. You studied computer science. You received Bachelor's of Science with honors. And then after that, you actually did some advanced studies in biomedicine at Tel Aviv University.
Yes. It started by me was fascinating forever about the human-machine interactions and about the potentials. And I was love the brain, actually. It started with cognitive computation, accepted to a direct PhD in the Hebrew University. That's how it started. And I found that the academia is just too slow for what I wanted to do, as I was always in favor of building stuff. Traveled the world, got back, decided to go to Tel Aviv University for biomedicine, and started my journey in the industry.
Growing up, what did you want to be professionally?
I knew I'm going to be a problem solver. I didn't know what type, but I remember from the age of 11 doing all kind of patents to my mother at the kitchen, and people called me the improver because I wanted to improve their life. Like, it's all small things, nothing fancy, but small things makes big impacts. And this is how I started dealing with that, but I didn't really know. And to be honest with you, I heard the question differently. I still don't know how to answer that question.
There are a lot of people who argue with that.
Yes.
So after Ben Gurion, after Tel Aviv University, you then worked in a couple of different companies. You were at Amdocs and Octavian. And then at some point, you came up with the idea for Nuvo. So first of all, tell us what the problem was. What happened in your life which made you conceive of this company?
I'll tell you the mid version of that story. And the mid version is I'm living in Tel Aviv. I'm working as an architect for Octavian Tech, which was closed by that point, doing financial services. Nothing too interesting, to be honest, but I was on the line New York, Tel Aviv, my wife pregnant, and she wanted to play music to the baby in the womb. And the time there was a lot of bombers, and it started as a joke. I'm sitting in my balcony. She wanted to play music. We end up with a headset like yours on the heads, very big, very bulky, cost a lot of money. And she's sitting there with her big belly. And one day I'm looking at her and with those belly and a lot of wires. And I said, "You look like a suicide bomber. If you go out like that right now, they're going to arrest you." That's how it started.
That's funny.
And I said, we have to do something about that. Like, it needs to be more comfortable. It needs to be more mobile. And you don't even know if it's working. You're sitting there. Maybe it's not effective. Maybe it's too loud. What do you know about the worm? I start asking tons of questions like an engineer. And I said, you know what? Let me find something for you. And it started as a search for a real product. And I was on the line and I started searching. I couldn't find it. And I said, all right, if everybody's doing it, and it's a lot of people in pregnancy. So your first pregnancy, you go to all the Lamas courses, you see a lot of people doing it, a lot of mothers.
Doing
including
what?
Playing music to the baby, including home mother. Start telling with the other device. They just, I was sitting next to the speaker 30 minutes every day. Home mother start telling me all kind of stories. And I said, all right, it probably has a device out there. So I start searching. That turns to be obsession. Couldn't find it. Said, if it doesn't exist, let's do it. Draw a picture, show it to a few friends or family. Everybody wanted to join the party. It was very sexy. It looks amazing. It was the first draw of what we called rhythm of pregnancy today. First wearable device. 2 years before the Techno wearable, I didn't know how to call it. But I raised $68,000 over 1 weekend. I said, fine, let's do it.
So it started off as playing music to the baby during pregnancy.
Right.
Let's start with that idea. I mean, you searched online, couldn't find anything, and that could be, that there are two messages potentially, right? One is no one's thought of it, and it could be a big successful idea. And number two is there's a reason why no one's thought of it. Maybe it's failed before, maybe it hasn't, worked, maybe it's dangerous, maybe music causes issues in utero. How did you vet the idea?
Unlike a lot of entrepreneurs, I talk to a lot of people. People sometimes do it within their own. One of the learnings is talk to that about yours, idea, and with many people as possible, as multiple brains is better than one by statistics, and it's hard to execute, so don't be afraid of telling. So I started talking to people about that. And I was not, never as engineers, looked in the past and saying people didn't fail in the past, I'll fail now. I just learned from what they did. And when I started the journey, the first thing that Nuvo did is actually learned very carefully with researchers we hired about the acoustic environment called uterus, that no one actually knew how it's created. So even ritual pregnancy is the most sophisticated auditory stimulation system, what you call play music to the baby in the womb. It's actually true, one of the best still sophisticated system that calibrated signals and quality in audio to make it effective and safe at the same time, because we wanted to solve for that idea while we create mobility, comfortability, and look. And that's what Ritmo was. When I started vetting the idea, it was a creation. So we created multiple products and tested all the way, what we did here as well. We did jump all the way, start selling and failing on the market, like a lot of other do. It was hard to raise capital. We didn't know how to explain the product. It was a nightmare, to be honest. And then we started selling the product after 2 years. And in one point, we went to one of the biggest shows in America, and we said, let's test the product, and the product will speak what we do now. The product will speak for itself. And performance, and in that was less performance, more of looks and accuracy and quality and comfortability. And we started writing orders all over the world and start building Ritmo Pregnancy.
You founded the company in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
That was, I guess 2007 was okay, but you then entered a market which getting funding for anything, 2008, the financial crisis, was very difficult. How did you handle that?
So when I introduced Ritmo Pregnancy, I remember every second of that financial crisis because I lived through that financial crisis myself. After the show of 2008, we wrote so many orders, and a week later, Lehman Brothers collapsed and drew the entire market into the bottom. I needed to hibernate the business, made the most tragic feeling, the most tragic decision to hibernate the business after all this order. Think of all that fundraising and orders and getting to the show and writing the orders and actually have a business. You feel you have a business, and then we needed to shut it down because it was not the right time to introduce something like that to the market, thanks God.
So you actually shut the entire business down at that point?
Yes, for a year. Raised money in 2009 and restarted again. Everything from scratch. And it was hard. It was hard to reintroduce it. So I started selling the product into the market, faced dead brick and mortar business in 2009-10. Just empty shops. You couldn't get anything. And we decided to shift the entire business to online.
How many units did you sell?
Tens of thousands. But we made a lot of mistakes, including debt, banking debts, and a lot of the growth was very fast growth, and you need to live and you need to know how to do it. And it sucked us. It sucked the business into growth, and it almost killed us.
So here you had a lot of orders, and if you don't know how to grow quickly, that could be the death knell of the company, right?
Yes.
If you don't know how to fill the orders and scale up very quickly. Tell us specifically about that difficult time.
It's amplified 10 times in pregnancy because I'll put it in context of Tesla. So if you buy a Tesla and, they said, we cannot deliver this September, we'll deliver next September. You really want the Tesla, you will wait. You'll be frustrated, you'll write a lot, you tweet a lot, but you'll wait. Pregnancy is not something you can wait on. So if you didn't get it to the consumer in time, it's over. And if it's over, it's devastating to the pipeline of orders and to your relationship with buyers. So it was a very hard lesson to learn. We scaled up on something very new, wearable device, on a mass scale, hundreds of percents growth. And we know how to build it properly. I'll say that every problem not having orders and having a lot of orders not deliver is the same results. which is almost death. So you need to be controlling your demand and do what is possible for the business. So it's a big learn. Because of funding, with all those orders, I didn't have enough funding to support it. I took that from the bank. It was a bank financially in a very early stage of the company without enough track record, and because of production problems, we couldn't deliver in time. And again, pregnancy cannot wait, and it was not pleasant. 2000, and through the growth, we almost collapsed us. But all of that behind us today.
So you accidentally fell into this business of designing and distributing a wearable device for pregnant women.
Right.
And to play music to the fetus. So what happened next for you to pivot and change the business to what it is today?
The business, like every business, starts having challenges of competitions. Us wants to innovate to the business. And above all, I had additional 2 kids on the way. I think that's the big story. So I have 3 kids. I'm a father of 3, and the whole business started with the first pregnancy. A lot happened. I had another girl in between, and the last one turns to be high risk pregnancy. And it was a point. It was a junction for me and for the business itself. Through the end of pregnancy, because of historical conditions and other reasons, my wife needs to do every check. She turned to be high risk, and they put it into a tight management program here in Israel. This management program requires you, above all, among other things you need to do a multiple test every week, going back and forth. We are living in Israel. It's very small, very convenient. Everything is very small, specifically in my city. But it's still, she couldn't do anything else but being pregnant. We said she worked to be pregnant. But everything changed that after all that effort, going back and forth, hours every time, she couldn't get proper reading. And we've been pushed to C-section, emergency C-section, unnecessary. We see fetal distress through the reading. I was challenging that because of our knowledge, and a lot happened to Nuvo at back time. We got another reading. We saw all this bad statistic of getting better reading, better interpretation. We stayed at home. Our journey ends with 10 days where I visit and accompanied my wife every day to do it, to make sure she's not being misread. And I remember what I needed to do. I needed to create a continuous lines of reading because the technology has so many limitations. So I was sitting next to her on this machine called CTG, stands for cardiotachograph for the audience, which is the foundational device for monitoring, fetal monitoring today. Has 2 transducers that you need sits on the belly, and I needed to chase the baby with the transducers manually to create a continuous lines of reading to make sure it's not holes because of the technology. And our journey ends up with regular delivery, less than 2 hours in delivery room, happy mom, happy baby, no implications.
So you had a very challenging pregnancy that turned out to be, well, I mean, things were fine.
Things were fine, but over those 10 days, when I was sitting with my wife, I was shocked by one single thing above all. So the entire city comes and go from this building. And I said, why women needs to travel? Why can't data travel? As all we do is picking up and collecting the data. We need it every day, so we need to build a profile. In 2014, we can fly to the moon and to the space, but we cannot know what happened in the womb, and we need to move women around the world. And that's the beginning. It's my shallow understanding of the problem. We didn't know the problem is massively bigger, but it was just one example of accessibility. And I said, data should travel, women should not. And we can do so much better to women. We can solve that piece of the problem for them. And let's free the women. And it started the journey of creating a new monitoring system or new monitoring technology to allow this to happen, to allow mobility, to allow connectivity remotely from home. That's going to help the system, but above all, going to help the mother. And that's how this journey started 4.5 years ago.
According to the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, actually, 35% failure rate for current electronic fetal monitoring solutions. 35% failure rate.
Right.
And you're trying to solve it.
Yes, in a completely different way. We decided to look on the problem in a completely different way, and just starts from scratch by creating a new layer of technology, a new sensory layer.
So what did you guys make?
So Nuvo created the InView platform. The InView makes the womb transparent to the network of care through data views. The solution has 3 columns, has a wearable device, has a cloud environment for processing, and a lot of digital tools to access that knowledge. The wearable device, which everybody sees the tip of the iceberg, that has multiple sensors that wrap the belly in a very unique position, that allow us to capture a very unique data sets from a fixed location through a device that can be administrated by any mother anywhere in the world by herself, through our unique digital tools that allow self-administration, automations of data collection. The data is traveled to the cloud. That's where we created a digital dashboard of pregnancy, the first of its kind, very unique and very deep, that really opened that black box we call pregnancy and give information to the mother and anyone on that journey called pregnancy, the partner, the doctor, etc., the information they need. There's multiple stakeholders on that one single journey. We'll talk about it in a second. And we access through the proper relevant digital tools to that information. The information is very deep. Each stakeholder, starting with the mother, gets its own version of the proper information.
So basically, a woman is pregnant and she gets this device from her doctor, I guess?
It's dependent on the use case. It depends on the use case.
Okay.
But it's very important to first put it in context. So as we say, pregnancy is a black box. No one knows anything. What happens today is you go to the doctors, and between those visits, you see what's happened. It's event-driven. If something happens, you only know in the next visit or in a bad circumstances. No one really manages pregnancy. There's no proper monitoring of pregnancy. Think of every other condition that is managed in medicine. Think of diabetes or cardiac heart failure. You have a continuous monitoring of the condition in order to make sure nothing really changed. Pregnancy, that didn't have the technology to do it up to now, although it's proven the benefits over time. Now, if you go to how the device is being used, so mother can ask for it, or the doctor can sign for it. It's really depending on the use cases. It can be for low risk, or it can be high risk, can be multiple condition, as the technology solves for many conditions on the journey of pregnancy. And the moment a prescription has been written that limits the use and creating the connected solution between the doctor, the relevant doctor, and the mother, the device is being shipped and everything done automatically by our environment.
So why is this device called InView?
So InView stands for inside view, as we bring the internal view to the network of care. And InView was built to make the womb transparent to data to the network of care, starting with the mother, as she's part of that network. So her partner, the dad, and any network of care, starting with the obstetrician, the OB, and moving to any doctor you need to. It can be fetal cardiologist, it can be anyone, fetal maternal specialist that sometimes is part of that journey. So we serve all of them holistically.
What is the problem that InView is trying to solve?
So let's understand standard of care today. So standard of care today is you get pregnant and you're going to visit your doctor multiple times during your pregnancy for deeper dive of tests. Besides those columns of information, we know nothing. Essentially, it's a black box. For the doctor, for the mother, she doesn't know what's happening. She doesn't know what's happening. And unlike other things that you can, understand from yourselves, it's a black box for the mother. She, besides a few kicks, and maybe she feels the baby, maybe she won't, maybe she feels contraction, maybe she won't, she doesn't really know, none of the doctor. Nuvo is here to change that, to make the journey that we know more than what we don't know. Like today, if you look on those, that black box, we want to open it and to create, to complete the journey with data. So we move from guesswork to actual knowledge, and with knowledge we can treat better.
What's interesting is that the types of people who are going to use this really span the gamut. You have women who just want to listen to the baby. At any point during the pregnancy, we've all been there. the fetus hasn't moved, it hasn't kicked. Is everything okay? I'm concerned. Then you have women who have high-risk pregnancies that need to be closely monitored. And then you have women who aren't near their doctor, right? I mean, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, almost 50% of U.S. counties lack a practicing obstetrician or gynecologist. And so this provides mobility and the ability to really at least have the doctor monitor you from, many, many miles away.
Yeah, you are talking about something we call the accessibility problem. And it falls into mainly underserved population. That's why it's a type of under the radar in some degree. If you go and look on the US industry, US specifically, it's a worldwide phenomenon, but let's double click on the US as you expect different. The US spend the most amount of money on pregnancy care, about $100 billion plus. As you said, it's one of the quotes and is in the worst place in terms of quality measurements among the developed countries. There's the
So America spends the most and delivers amongst the worst quality.
Right. In terms of measurements so there's increase of mother and fetal mortality. There's increase of high risk pregnancy. If I'll show you a statistic, you're going to be blessed. And generated some news from Newsweek just recently. Some titles like the U.S. is the deadliest place on the developed country to deliver a baby in. And that's 2 months ago, not far away. So we're talking about trifecta of troubling trends: the high risk pregnancy increase, the fetal mortality increase, and the shortage of OBGYN, as you mentioned.
Right. WHO, actually, it's a tragic statistic, but they report that nearly 7,000 newborn babies die every day, globally.
Globally, yes. Because we have a problem of accessibility, scalability, and ability to distribute a system effectively into the market. So if you think of the current standard of care, in order to solve it, you need a maternal fetal medicine department. You need a building, you need chairs, you need the practitioners, you need the machines, you need the expertise. It's very expensive, almost impossible to structure. So if you go to places like Africa, India, or rural countries in the USA, it's hard to solve. What you need is remote access and a lot of sophistication. And that's what Nuvo and other technologies in the digital health space that emerged, medical wearable devices, sophisticated AI cloud environment, all of that is emerged into being a solution. For the first time, we actually see a possible solution in pregnancy in other places.
So if a woman is pregnant and she has an issue, a concern, she puts on your device, it monitors what?
We build a digital dashboard of pregnancy. It monitors many biomarkers, but if we go with the OB current standard of care, they usually if you go to the ER, they will put you on a monitor and they will pick up fetal heart rate and maternal uterine activity, meaning they find a correlation between how the uterus is working, and specifically contraction episodes, and fetal heart rate. And they try to determine. Sometimes they do additional tests like ultrasound and sonogram and blood tests. That's what's been done. Our device allow to do the most of the triaging remotely, meaning you wear the device, you definitely get the fetal heart rate, maternal heart rate, uterine activity, and many, many more indication as we go, as we're building the device on fetal ECG and maternal ECG and many other biomarkers, allowing to develop a proper triage online and to determine should you come or not, and basically focus the attention on those who need it when they need it, and creating knowledge when it's time and as early as possible. So it's just in time, just in place, and as early as possible.
So the data after you wear the device gets uploaded to the cloud, just for our listeners. And at that point, you can analyze the data, you can stream it or deliver it to a physician instantaneously who can look at it and say, yeah, you're fine. No, you're not fine. Come in right away. And then not only that, but you have the ability, I guess, to use machine learning to analyze that data holistically. You're getting data points from, potentially millions of people over a period of time. The amount of data you can learn from it, the medical things that you can learn from that data is probably very significant.
We are already learning from the data a lot, and we have discoveries in Nuvo that's going to be published soon through medical journeys that are amazing on the technology side, but also in medicine.
Are you allowed to give us a little teaser?
Not for now.
Okay.
Not for now. But I'll say that the data will be analyzed, already being analyzed heavily, more than ever. And we're going to put it in context of a full journey and try to serve our consumers, which are the mother best, and to a better, eventually a better outcome of pregnancy. So this is completely part of the journey. And if you think of it, we created a system that wherever it is, whoever using it, we're going to get the same type of quality data, creating consistency of data, measurement data analysis, which is very, very important for decision making, and eventually creating a predictive machine to the AI. Meaning we have a very, very sophisticated machine that feeds the AI machines of Nuvo. And it's going to be very exciting few years for us.
Let's take a step back a little bit and talk about how you built the business, because clearly the product has enormous potential. Who was your first hire?
I brought in initially a data scientist, DSP engineer, digital signal processing, as I understood and still see the future and the entire assets for Nuvo as data. As everything we do, the device, etc., is not for most people it looks the solution, but it's only enabler for the machine, as we are dealing with data and knowledge.
You actually started with the end in mind. You basically said, okay, this is what we want to get. This is the data we want to get. Yeah. Now let's reverse engineer the machine to deliver that data to you.
Exactly. Unlike most people that start with, those are the sensors, let's build from the sensors up. No, we created the device to support the machine that it needs to feed.
Okay, and then what did you do then in terms of building the business?
So it was a constant building. So we built the business, we put the first prototype. It was very challenging because people look at it and say, amazing, looks amazing, but can it actually do the work? And eventually when you start hitting performance issues, you see how deep and how complex the problem is. We were underestimating everything. We needed to do everything better sensors, better data, more computation, more everything. It was another cycle of investment. And during that time, we are testing the product. And for me, testing the product is putting it out there and see what the market has to say. Not to the extreme. So we start collecting orders. And at one point, we even give up almost 100,000 units order for consumer market with one of the earliest version. As we understood, we didn't do enough testing to make sure it's actually performed well.
So you had 100,000 orders for this product.
Yes.
And you said, we're not going to fill these orders because the product isn't ready. We want to make sure that what we deliver is accurate and responsible. And so you gave up an order for 100,000 units, which is a lot of money, in order to ensure that the quality is at the level that you're comfortable with.
We had orders from all over the world, distribution agreement, MOUs, thousands of them after one or two big shows. And we pushed all of that because we understood it's not ready. We cannot sleep well at night knowing that we give a mother information and we actually deliver a reduction of anxiety. Meaning if we don't provide information, potentially it's a false
positive, false negative.
The liability on both sides are very high. And also it's not what we wanted to do, really, the company. So we understood we have to take the whole route and push the company to a medical device grade, which is actually, if you read carefully the FDA regulatory, all those devices they are not following are doing illegal things. You have to test it for medical graded, as this is a special population called pregnancy. And we are quantifying information they don't know. So we cannot give them the false negative, false positive is exceptionally important.
So far, at any point in time that you've been building Nuvo, did you have any doubts as to whether it was going to be successful?
every day. Yes, we have doubts, and the doubts keeps us, alerted on what happens. So yes, every day, every challenge was never easy. We thought it's going to be much simpler. If you look on the first designs of Nuvo, it was sleek, simple, gadget looking, and we felt with 2 pieces of fabric, we're gonna solve the world of pregnancy monitoring. We found out that we need to do a lot more, about $25 million more investments of technology. The depth of innovation we need to create can be only demonstrated by the level of IP Nuvo has, which now we have granted more than 10 patents in the US alone, more than 24 globally, and we have a pipeline of about 28 to come. So the massive of innovation together with the de novo says how deep, unique the solution is. And it was not just to create a unique solution, is we needed to crack something massively hard in order to accomplish what we accomplished clinically, and performance is above all, and eventually it needs to work for mothers as a product that's going to be placed in her journey as part of her life in pregnancy.
So far, looking back at the business, what was the greatest challenge that you've faced?
People management.
Okay.
I think technology can be solved. Money is a pain in the ass, but can be solved. People are the most delicate. Definitely when you're building the business is people. And for me, building the business is building the team. And it was the single hardest thing for me is I take the people and the team very seriously. And everyone who brought in or anyone I needed to leave was a battlefield. For me, it was the single thing. The hardest thing is to build the right team. With the right team, you can do everything. Without the right team, you cannot do anything.
Because you, prior to starting this company, you really didn't have experience in managing a team. I mean, you were a data, you were a senior software engineer. You were, you never got trained in business in school. You were never a CEO before, and so you're really learning as you're building it.
It's accurate by industry credentials and CV, but I passed 5 years at the Army on the worst of the worst. Was much harder as human life was on stake than to make a decision that lose money worst. Money can be recovered, human lives cannot. So over years and years, first I was managing tens of people's
in the
business in the Army. Okay. I was responsible of a business, let's say a business plan, yearly business plans of hundreds of people over my different jobs. So I knew how to look on the program, and above all, a lot of the people in the Army, even not officers or people who are facing significant things, are coming from this blended environment of has to do it, you don't have a choice, and it has to succeed. So, and that combination created for me and a lot of entrepreneurs the landscape of actually do it. We have the ability to do it. The training, I would say. We got the training in the Army, or the foundation of training, and all the rest is learning over time.
That was going to be my next question, which is the impact the Army had on your entrepreneurial experience. So clearly, the Army did a very good job in incubating the person you are today, leading the organization that you're leading.
The Army do a great job here in Israel, and it's just not just me; it's the environment here. Everybody passed the Army. Everybody go through that experience in different version of it, but the same experience. We created a very unique blend of expertise here in the market. So yes, it's the startup nation is always a challenge to crack. Why and how? But the Army play a very significant part. Specifically, the Air Force and my training, which forced you every time to go and say, even if it's fantastic to come and say how you do it better next time, what was the learning, how you implement them. And this constant challenging from as early as the Army starts at 18 years old, put you in a place that is second to none in the world.
Which brings me to the issue of lessons learned so far. What is the greatest lesson that you've learned so far that we can teach the next generation of entrepreneurs who may be listening to this?
I would say my learning spread on many vectors, like how to tell the story and how to raise money and how to attract people. But for me, the hardest is you need a delicate balance between listening to people and not losing your road, not losing your campus and North Star, which is very important, very hard, very easy to lose over the way. So you need to know where you go, but don't stop to hear what's happening around and to perfect yourself. Nothing is static, even the North Star in some degree. And you saw it with Nuvo. We started with a North Star called Ritmo. We are here in InView now platform, disrupting pregnancy monitoring, in just the beginning of our journey.
Israel has an unusually large number of startups per capita. I think the largest in the world. And you addressed it a few minutes ago. Maybe you do a little bit of a deeper dive. What is it about Israel that incubates some of the greatest entrepreneurs and innovators of our time?
I will say it's only going to be my humble opinion, as I really don't know. My humble opinion is saying it's a blend of a few things. The army is number one that created that everybody passed that training, which is a very important training. So you train the entire population if you want. That's number one. So you have a very trained population to be resourceful, to live in an environment that is not reached by capital. So you need to be resourceful on many things, not just by solving problems you didn't see before, but you don't have even the tools to solve them. So you need to reinvent the tools. So resourceful population, good training program. And Israel life, like you live here in this unique place, and they force you to succeed because you don't have another choice. Like if you're not successful, you, in many places, definitely through the army, you die. So you have to succeed because it's in many places, it's a life of that. And we take that, it was blended into our DNA for so many years. So it comes to everything we do. I think for life, the way we train, like the way I look on my kids is changed over time. It's not just in business, it's everything you do. It's through those lenses. So you live in this crazy place called Israel that forced you to succeed, competitive environment for success. The army is a good training. I think it's a very unique environment for the startup nation.
What is the one question entrepreneurs should ask before they begin their own journey, like you did, and build a startup?
Is it my passion? That's the question. Is it really my passion? Because you're going to do it so intensively, much more than you probably think, for longer. You need to see the light, as we say. You need to love what you do, because otherwise it's just frustration. If you love what you do and you have a passion to do it, you can be successful, and you can sustain many of the unknown that the journey will detect. Sometimes you're going to get lucky when you read them on the paper, but most of the time you won't. And you have to plan for most of the time.
Well, InView, will be in market, we hope, with FDA approval in 2019.
Right.
And we're not going to get into the details of your funding, except to say that the valuations that you've received by investors have been very significant, which means that investors really value and see the opportunity of what you're doing here. And so we are expecting great things and to hear great things from you and from the company. And hopefully, our wives and significant others and partners will be able to have technology which would hopefully provide a peace of mind, an easier pregnancy, less stress, and hopefully solve some of the great problems that we're facing on Earth today, which comes down to the experiences of pregnancy and ultimately to save lives. Thank you for being with us today. We really do appreciate it. And we're hoping to hear great things from you.
Oh, thank you very much for hosting me. Thank you for the questions, and looking forward.
Thank you.
Next.
You've been listening to Startup Stories from the Startup Nation. I'm the host, Yigal Marcus. The associate producers are Moshe Raps and Avi Maklis, and the senior research analyst is Lior Lebin. If you have a startup that you think we should feature on air, please email me at yigal.marcus@bernstein.com or at startupstoriesisrael@gmail.com. No good startup in Israel is too big or too small. A big, very special thank you to my employer, Alliance Bernstein Investment Management and Research, who has been incredibly supportive of this initiative. And please share these podcasts with your friends, like us on Facebook, and please, please, please rate us on iTunes. Until next time, thank you for listening.